নিশি জপ করে মন বলে ভজকারী।
O playful mind, meditate on the mystery of Kali, using any method of worship you please, or simply breathe day and night her holy name as the living seed of transforming power planted by the teacher in your heart. As you wander through countryside or city, feel that you are moving through Mother Kali. All sounds that you hear are her natural mantras, repeating spontaneously as the entire world worships her. Goddess Kali constitutes the letters of every alphabet, and each letter secretly bears the flower of her name. The singer of this song is overwhelmed and cries, "Wonderful, wonderful! The Divine Mother exists fully through every living creature." O wandering poet, whatever food or drink you receive, offer as oblation into the sacrificial fire of your body, and meditate intensely on her encompassing reality.
Om Mantranam Jivabhuta Tuya Smrita Shakti Rupaya Tatahina Valarohe Nishfalaha Sharda Bravat. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. She whom the seers know and remember through the ages as the imperishable Shakti is the meaning in all the slokas and the sutras of the revealed scriptures. Without her, O fair one, all the tattvas would be about as useful as clouds with no rain. She is the perfect I consciousness existing in all the multitude of words, and the secret of all the mantras, whose very being is the essence of non-duality. Om peace, peace, peace. Om yo brahmanan vidadati purvam, yo vai vidamscha prahinohi tasmai. Tanha deva atmaburi prakasha. Momokshurvai sharnamaham prapadye. Om shantihi shantihi shantihi. That one formless being, out of which sprang the Divine Trinity at the beginning of a cosmic cycle, and who granted the Vedas unto Lord Brahma, who is the eternal bridge to immortality, who is partless, formless, actionless and divine, who resembles fire that has consumed all its fuel. I go for refuge to that Supreme Being, whose light and intelligence turns the mind of mankind toward the Atman, the indivisible being in all things. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavo Vahai Tejasvi navaditamastu ma vidvishovahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, divine reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking process. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us. May peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. It is Sunday afternoon, and as usual with SRV associations here in Hawaii, on the Big Island of Hawaii, we meet for a 3-hour session of Dharma teachings. Dharma that really leads us towards even a higher principle called Atman or Vigyan, because Dharma sometimes covers a gamut of wisdom teachings that could be as basic as the 4 fruits of life or the Eightfold Path and so forth, but it also goes deeper inward to have revelation of insights that can open up this Atman to us, and in that way have perception of non-duality, which is of course a very rare thing for the people of this day and age. This is basically drawn from Indian Dharma, but even beings in India are not having these kinds of samadhis and experiences as much as in the past, because of the weights and limitations on the mind and the pervasive activities that they're engaged in. So that's why we like to meet and go deeper into these teachings of the Dharma. Maybe a good word might be Swadharma, because there's Adharma, which is living in ignorance, and then there's Dharma, which is becoming aware of the righteous teachings of these various Indian darshanas. And then there's Swadharma, which is finding your destined or predestined path. Again, one of the deeper teachings would be that before you took a body on earth, you would have set this up for yourself. The kinds of teachers you met that would encourage you and take you deeper, and the ends and means that you come upon based upon your desires for enlightenment would come to you in this present lifetime and egg you on, as it were. Follow the string of your yoga, as Sri Krishna puts it in the Bhagavad Gita. And so then this swifter involution back to a divine source can be had, rather than a continual evolution outward with no other trajectory, or a looking backwards in time to imagine that you were once an animal or something. These kinds of ideas, of course, are fantastic and superstitious, whether they come clothed in science or fundamentalist religion. The Vedantists, the Buddhist, the informed Sufi, the beings who are always either through the paths of intense devotion or refined intelligence are looking for answers to the problems of why the soul can't live in a state of oneness with its true nature, even here on earth, even inside the physical body, because there are words for that, like Bodhisattva in Buddhism and Jivan Mukta in Hinduism and Vedanta. So they're not really looking for answers to the problems of the world, because there are no answers for those. They'll, as you've seen, for hundreds and thousands of years, and probably as many lifetimes as you've ventured outward into this planet, into the physical body. You've seen how problems are just exacerbated and continue, even on a grand scale, like war and peace trading off with each other, happiness and sorrow, and health and disease, and virtue and vice, and the rise of religion and the fall of religion. All of these things on a continual cycle, which is one of the great teachings of the Buddha, was to make us realize that there are cycles going on. I just actually chanted about one at the beginning of class when I said that formless being out of whom sprang the Trinity. You see, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. They came out as projections from this great consciousness. So that even the greatest of gods are taking on a form in some deep place of consciousness. And all of that is then trickling down, all the way down to the 5 elements in the waking state here on the world. And there are a lot of different ways in which to explain that in India. Samkhya and Yoga and Vedanta and Buddhism, Jainism, Tantra. They all have a version. Did I say a version? I meant a version. They all have a version of how this process, which you might want to term cosmology, coming from the inner to the outer, takes place for the human being. But as I was just saying, if all you have to do is, the only recourse you have is to look back in time, and you don't see that time is a circle or a cycle that hooks up with itself, every 4,320,000,000 years, let's say. Or all you have to do is look up into physical space where there's nothing but planets and a few elements, then you really don't have this great nadi opening up inside of you, this great channel that pierces through all veils and beholds the great light, which is that formless essence that we just chanted about, out of which sprang the Trinity, out of which sprang the worlds, and so forth. So having a glimpse of that light is called enlightenment, or at least it's a great boon towards gaining Jivan Mukta or Bodhisattva for all time, so you don't have to cycle anymore. Recycle even. We talk a lot about the problems of Earth while you're talking about recycle of plastics and tin, which they're not taking anymore here on our island. They're only taking cardboard and other things. So that's a recycle problem here. And the recycle problem here in the mind is, how many bodies do I have to take and give up? How much suffering do I have to go through? How many times do I have to experience the 6 transformations: birth, growth, disease, old age, decay, and death? And how many times do I have to take on parents and become a baby and grow and die and go to school? And all of these things are questions that arise in the mind that's seeking enlightenment and wanting to solve that puzzle for good. The puzzle of Maya, or samsara, if you will. 2 words that we have that you don't find in any other tradition or religion that India has, to explain what ails you, what puzzles you, what flummoxes the mind, and what throws you back again and again on your ancestors in a loop of rebirth. So all of these things are serious considerations for the inward moving aspirant who has given up fantastic ideas of coming out of Earth as some one-celled being, or going up somewhere to alien parents that came here thousands of years ago and spawned you. Fantastic things like that, the way people are thinking based on science fiction and the atomic particle, when the whole thing is really about the inner perfection that you are. That's why I just chanted about the Atman. I take refuge in that Supreme Brahman whose light turns the intelligence of mankind, hopefully it still has some, turns the intelligence of mankind to the Atman, the indivisible self, within all, within everything. So if you're looking at physical things, you'll find their essence as particles. The same really is true if you look at your Atman. You'll find that the essence of that is particles of intelligence, and they hold the worlds. And they hold the seeds for everything. And that's what we'll look at today in the third mantra class, are called bijams. And you need to get initiated into a power word like that by an illumined soul, like I got from my teacher Swami Asheshanandaji Maharaj, may peace and bliss be upon him, and have that mantra transmitted to you with its power words called bijams, which really means a seed word. Use that inside and break open these blockages that are based in many lifetimes of conditioning, many lifetimes of wrong or mixed thinking. Samskaras, again, no word for it in English. Samskara is a mental impression that's been formed back in your subconscious mind because of living many lifetimes in a certain mode. Like a camel eating thorny bushes will come back as a camel eating more thorny bushes. And all beings are following that desire based on a samskara in their brain, in their mind. So all of these things, when you look for a solution for being limited to a form, to being free, if you want to put it that way, an inward ascension that can, as Sri Ramakrishna used to say, turn your mind into a hot air balloon. So the buoyancy, so that your mind is always going up, up. He said, well, most people's minds are like rainwater. You know what's happening there. They're always going to the lowest place. They'll fall to earth, and then they'll look for some divot, like a hoof print in the water and a hoof print in Death Valley. As low as they can get, you see, that's where the water will go. But the minds of beings who are seeking this Atmagyan, or seeking Dharma, or seeking freedom, or seeking enlightenment, or seeking moksha, or mukti, or kaivalya, or sampragyata, or nirvana, or nirvikalpa, or satori, names in different traditions, the beings who are seeking that, they want to make their mind buoyant. And so they'll focus their mind on this ultimate reality, which also has many names: Brahman, Allah, Almighty Father, Yahweh, Buddha nature, Tathagata Garbha. So, and if they can't reach that just with the buoyancy of their own mind, then they'll convince a deity to break through for them. See, you get to the Father through the Son kind of idea. Here, it's you get to the ultimate reality through the Divine Mother. So she has all the bijam, she has all the power words. You ask her for one, she gives you one, you use it because the barrier is inside your mind. And that barrier breaks down and you get free. So Holy Mother, or Sri Sharda Devi, my guru's guru, used to say that mantra is not the end-all and be-all, it's a practice, but it will lead you to the highest. It's the best purificatory tool. And we looked at that 2 weeks ago when we looked at the 14 facts of the mantra. If you remember Chaitanya dancing and that chart I showed, with his mind steeped in God realization because of the mantra of Krishna that he was, and Radha that he was chanting all the time. It's not only clear understanding that comes to you, but also bliss, ecstasy comes. Depending on your nature or depending on any given phase of your sadhana in any given lifetime that you've arrived here. So the problem of rebirth then is one of the things that you could bring up as grounds for inspection. And then when you've inspected it well enough, you say, well, where's the tool, to penetrate through this? Where's the sword of discrimination that I can cut through this? One of the charts I'll show you here in a minute. This all has to do then with the third class of our series here on mantra, that we are concluding this afternoon. And we happen to be just 2 days before Sri Ramakrishna's birthday and just 2 days after Shivaratri. So falling right in the middle of these two great holy days with these two great deities, Shiva and Sri Ramakrishna, the Kali avatar, we're in a good space, good time, and a good place to finish up or complete whatever teachings can be given in 9 hours. So you've had 6 hours of many teachings from many different directions. Remember the 4 phases that when you're given the mantra that it goes through: Vaikari, Madhyama, Pashanti, and Para. If you can think back and remember and envision that, and what happens in each of those phases, because we then took a chart of how 21 points of mantra practice last week, and how they go, what happens inside of those 4 phases. So this is a very well figured out system. It's ancient. Mantra, I mean, where can you look? Even in so-called westernized versions of Eastern religion, like Christianity and so forth, that will be devoid of the mantra. You're seeing people doing the rosary, you're seeing people chanting the 99 names of Allah, you're seeing beings in Tantra and in Veda and in Vedanta and in Yoga and in Buddhism, all have this deep involvement with mantra, the power in words, which is why I started out saying she is the power in all the slokas and all the scriptures, all the sutras of all the world scriptures. That's how subtle she is. Hiding in plain sight, again, is that term that they use nowadays, and I think that's best used for Divine Mother. Yeah, I mean, you can walk into a room and you say, you know, where's my towel? I don't know where I put it. You find out that it was around your neck all the time while you went racing around the house. They use that metaphor for your Atman. Everyone's looking for the Atman, but it's in everything and everywhere, and they're trying to seek enlightenment by getting it, you see, but they already have it, as it were, around their shoulders like a lost towel, or on their finger like a lost ring. But I think the hiding in plain sight is best used in the sense of Divine Mother of the Universe hiding as pure intelligence, not intellect. Because we don't want to mistake that. The great thinkers and genius and so forth, they have intellect, and their intellect is very capacious, and they're stuffing it full of things all the time. Unfortunately, we would say that a lot of what they're stuffing in there, you know, they're giving to the ego first. You see, the ego is sitting inside the intellect saying, oh, thank you for more of this, because now I'm rich with everything I can call mine. And so I mean, and mine is ruining the knowledge that comes in. And that's why they think variously and backwards about things. Oh, look at the power in the atom. What can I use that for? And so they're off on a tangent that's going to cause karma and pain and suffering and war. So if, on the other hand, the ego were squelched or removed, if possible, or at least diminished, or what we like to call ripened, then all of the intelligence, all the intellect is being given all these higher teachings, then it makes itself ready to receive mother intelligence. And it can come to believe in something like the power in a word. That's what a bijam is. So I'm making the comparison here, not in terms of higher and lower, because it's obvious which should be higher or deeper, but between the atomic particle and the atmic particle. I have a chart that I've named that. I could easily bring it into the mantra topic, but we want to stay a little bit more to individuals' usage of the mantra that they got from an authentic source, because we've already mentioned several times that you don't want to get it from somebody on the street or from a businessman or from a surfer on the beach or something. I've heard stories, you see, or a hitchhiker got it once, you know. But you want to go to a being who's used it, maybe for lifetimes, and has gotten it from a lineage that has used it and has gotten personal realization from the usage of this. Recitation of the mantra we're talking about. Japa is the word we have in our tradition. And so that was one of the 21 facts and 14 facts about the mantras, that it works by repetition, you see. So maybe that is a good segue in, that is a segue out of my usual preamble, that I try and warm you up to the philosophy that we're entertaining here, and into some actual material, which I would say is not just information, but is falling in the category of Dharma, at least. It's not focusing. You might have realized, if you've watched these classes with SRV and myself for many decades, we've been giving them teachings. So we very seldom ever speak about morality and ethics. It's as if you come to the Indian darshanas, they figure you've already got that together. I got a message from somebody who's a Roman Catholic recently who said, yeah, I've studied the yamas and niyamas of yoga now. They make sense to me because they look a lot like the 10 Commandments. So 5 yamas, 5 niyamas. There are 10. And so you're looking at the old Abrahamic way, back to Judaism and so forth with the 10 Commandments. And I said, yes, they are quite a lot similar to that. But the way they have been looked at in India is different. That thou shalt not kill was a moral thing. And of course, people should have the intelligence to know they shouldn't do that. Probably even to forests and animals and so forth. There's a lot of that which is going on, but particularly to human beings and committing violence. But in India, the idea of ahimsa is that the soul is birthless and deathless, so that it cannot be killed. Krishna says so boldly in the Bhagavad Gita. In the second chapter, he says, those who think they're being killed and those who think they are doing the killing, neither of those two know the truth, that the Atman is indestructible. Fire cannot burn it. Water cannot drown it. A spear cannot cleave it. A sword cannot cut it. He goes on with some slokas in the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the best of all scriptures of the world, undoubtedly, to explain the nature of the indivisible, birthless, deathless, unoriginated Atman, or soul. And if you've come into a body and an age with upbringing that's put certain conditionings that have covered up the truth of the indivisible self within you, and you haven't heard about it yet, you're looking for that one being, or that one, with that one method, that's going to liberate you from maybe lifetimes of tyranny. I'm quoting Vivekananda here now. Lifetime of tyranny of your ancestors, and what they've put upon you and foisted upon you as really false belief, or let's say mixed belief, half-truths. They're more dangerous than outright untruth or lies, because most people can see those. But the mixed, where it gets you confused, that's where you have to sort through. So something as clear and definite as a powerful statement, much like I'm trying to express here, live streaming with people week after week on these different subjects, is what the sincere seeker is after in this lifetime. That's why they will gather around Guru, Dharma, and Sangha, the three, triple gem, they call those things. Guru, Dharma, and Sangha. The teacher, the teachings, and the group that is gathering around to hear those in this lifetime. Maybe have heard them before in other lifetimes. Maybe we'll hear them for days and weeks and months and years in this lifetime, but it'll click one day, and that great insight will come forth. And I'd say that was one way people talk about scrutiny. See, how do I scrutinize my mind and my thoughts? Should I just let them wander and float by like clouds on a sky and wait for the blue sky? Well, I could, follow this way of Vivekagyan or Atmagyan or Dharma, Swadharma we're talking, and scrutinize my thinking and its process. And when I have an insight, maybe to get insights, I would ask, what is the nature or content of an insight? How is it different than a thought? an everyday thought. So you would have to be, well, we've said it before, like a Eskimo studying snow conditions. His life depends on it. Every day he'll notice the differences in the snow conditions. So every day in your meditation, then you have to notice how your mind thinks and changes after this Dharma has been put into it. How your ego, who was once trying to claim it, gives up and says, uh-oh, I guess I cannot own all of that. It belongs to someone else. And bingo, there you are with the insight of the Divine Mother of the universe, whose power is infinite and whose wisdom is eternal. Sanatana Dharma, they call it. And how it all belongs to her. And this was the greatest insight of all of Sri Ramakrishna, when he was showing us how to get enlightenment in this day and age, there in the 1800s, showing us by surrendering himself to Divine Mother and revealing the power of mantras. And because Sri Sharda Devi, my teacher's teacher, said he taught me all the mantras when he was alive and how they connect to all the gods and goddesses, deities. So she would need to know that, because the Hindus, not only just in her time, but for generations, were proceeding by mantra. That was like one of the main practices. I mean, here in America we have a once-a-week church going maybe, and some prayers at meals, and that's going to suffice somehow for a good moral life, we hope. See, but the mantra in India has been forever, and there are many gods and goddesses they know about, and there are many different kinds of mantras, and your family has been, talk about conditionings that aren't unfavorable. Your family has been raised in a certain tradition, inside of the great tradition, has been reciting this mantra and being passed on to them by father to son, mother to daughter, and so forth, through family gurus. And this has been the tradition. We don't understand this when all of a sudden we see a guru come here who has a mantra to give, and we go and well, who do you like? And we say, who else? So the only thing we know is Jesus. And where's the mantra to Jesus other than in Catholicism? So there are many, many different kinds of beings who proceed inwardly with these powerful mantras. And if you have a teacher like Sri Sharda Devi, Holy Mother, a great Matri avatar, she was called, a Divine Mother avatar, then she'll know these mantras and be able to give them to any person from any family in any lineage that comes her way, whether they worshipped Shiva all their life, or Krishna all their life, or Ganesha all their life, or Surya all their life, or Shakti, the Divine Mother. There are many Shaktas in India. So those are pretty much the 5 main paths, coming out of the one path. This is a new mudra I made up for that, you see. On a one path there's 5, you see. So you pick one, then the other 5 get behind it, you see. So you pick one tradition, it's not like the others go away. Oh, I think I'll worship Divine Mother. So that puts Shiva and Vishnu and Ganesha somewhere out of the picture. No, they get behind you. You're a mother devotee now, and you get a mother mantra, and that's supposed to be the most powerful mantra of all. Maybe you'll see that as we look at some of these teachings. Let's start with Kamakala, or Shakti mantra, since that's been led into and segueing very well right now. You see there some of these words. Basically can define it just by saying the natural or spontaneous or indivisible unity of Shiva and Shakti. Shiva and Shakti is the male and female principle. In this week, last week alone, I've had 3 couples write to me for instructions on Shiva and Shakti. Because Shiva Ratri just happened. So people were writing and say, well, how do we worship Shiva? And I say, well, if you're a householder, then you worship the lingam, and you chanted hymns to Shiva, and you did various ritualistic practice at the temple for Shiva, and that's pretty much your calling as a householder. You'll do those, satisfy those rituals. And they were saying, yes, but we want something more, we want something more. See? So I'm saying, well, basically, do you have a lot of time away from children and money to worship Shiva and merge with him in formlessness? Can you do that for me? Because if you can, then I can give you some instructions for it. No, this pretty much cannot promise that, you see. But we have heard about the relationship between Shiva and Shakti, which is a tantric thing, you see. Can you give us instructions about that? And I say, well, not if you're thousands of miles away. I really can't. It needs to be exemplified by a living divine couple, and or maybe somebody. You might want to read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, because you'll find the essence of Tantra there, and you'll find the greatest Kundalini Yoga master there in Sri Ramakrishna himself. And these are paths that have to do with raising Shiva, raising Shakti to Shiva, or if you want to put it in Kundalini speak, raising this coiled up power of Shakti that's in everyone and everything, alluring her with something like, say, a mantra, so that when she hears it, she'll awaken inside of you. And let's say right away that it's not physical, the chakras are not physical points inside of a physical body. That's just a template, you see, like something that represents what's really inside. The chakras are all inside of your consciousness. And so basically you're going to have to think about it differently, because if you've been raised to think that you're a physical body and there's nothing but physics and there's nothing but atomic particles, and you've evolved from an animal or come out of space from an alien or something, you're talking about just one world. That's the physical world. But these 7 chakras represent at least 6 other worlds inside of you that, well, how do we say it? Bhur-bhuva swaha is how we say it. There are 3 of them that have to do with your ancestors and yourself. And then there are 4 others that starting with the, again, to use association, heart chakra, throat chakra, third eye chakra, and crown chakra. This is this raising of Kundalini. You have to have some sort of template for it, or some sort of idea of it, but not get led astray by the idea that somehow this is all in my physical being. This is a purely spiritual principle, and you're going to have to go inside to find it and follow it even deeper. And that's what meditation is really about. Leaving your body behind, because you do it every night in deep sleep. And the enlightened souls do it in samadhi. And they can do it consciously. People are doing it unconsciously in deep sleep and coming back to form. So it's there whether you like it or not. Whether you think of it as reality or not, there's a formless part to you. And it's actually very peaceful. And if you experience it, have that insight I was talking about, and you experience it as formlessness, like on a good meditation day, then you will have some sort of idea of the peace that passes all understanding, as Jesus used to say. You'll have some sort of idea of how to get beyond form, and how it's okay to do that, you see, like Zen does, and Vedanta and so forth, Nirvikalpa, Advaita Vedanta. So all of this is bubbling up right now in this class out of just the mention of Shiva and Shakti. So Kamakala. See, so basically this chart needs to be read from the bottom up. And it will take us into Tantra's way of explaining how important mantra is. I said that words like Om and Hrim and Aim, A-I-M, are courted by both Vedanta and Tantra, as if there were these 2 rivers that flowed in and out of each other from time out of mind. So these power words are inferred, and they will be there in the mantra. For instance, when I first went to my guru in this lifetime and told him I wanted to be initiated, and he gave me the mantra, he said, well, you must wait a year. I said, oh, shoots, I was kind of hoping to get it right away and start working, start practicing. But he was making Westerners wait a while, which later on I found out was a very wise thing, because mantras kind of were being taken and given up within weeks, and gurus were the same with the Westerners as they sort of menu tasted their way through surface spiritual life. And that was going on through the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Even with the appearance of Zen and then Tibetan Buddhism and Sufism, everything having its heyday, and people courting these practices for a very short time. So on the other hand, then, if you went to a teacher and you said you have to wait a year, then I said, well, what do I do in a year? Should I keep reading and so forth, the scriptures and all that? He said, well, here, I'll give you a pre-initiation mantra, he said. You can work with this. So he gave me the mantra that didn't have the bijam in it. See? So it just had the divine name of the deity that I loved. So I was using this for a year. And when I went back and he saw that I was still there and Johnny on the spot, courting it and serious about it, and was not likely to give it up, then he initiated me with, it's called mantra diksha. I'll show you a chart on that pretty soon about the different kinds of diksha that we can look at. We have to move through this class so we can get to a few of these, but the story actually is about mantra diksha, and how when I got the mantra, then he added in the bijam. And that made a lot of difference in my practice to have this power word. And I'll show you some of the power words too that are there in the tradition. It's like I said, this is a very well figured out, long-lived, ancient, really timeless path of mantra yoga. I've often said that it could almost be a fifth yoga if you're talking about jnanam, bhakti, karma, and raja. Basically wisdom, devotion, action, and meditation, the four great yogas. Mantra yoga could almost step up and say, move aside, you four, or it's like almost the four in one again, you see. That the mantra yoga is there in everything, power words. So if you start at the bottom of this chart, then you see that what's in a word? Everything. And people use words across the board all the time. Mundane human conversation. And it's going on all the time. Some of it is frivolous and pointless and, humorous, semi-serious, and gossipy. There are all sorts of avenues in which this first level can go. It says worldly talk and subjects. It associates basically with life in the gross world of nature. Gross world of matter, prakriti. In fact, the Agamas have a quote here we could put in here. As long as beings are not aware of Kamakala, that is, Shiva and Shakti principle, they move only in the phenomenal universe under the spell of Maya. But the moment that the reality of the oneness of Shiva and Shakti is apprehended, all sense of duality disappears. It makes it sound quick and simple, but believe me, it's not in this day and age. But if you were to study the scriptures, it's called the Agamas, in the Tantras and the Agamas, then you'd hear a lot about Shiva and Shakti. And like when Sri Ramakrishna speaks about them in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, he said they're like fire in its heat, water in its wetness. They cannot be separated. So you have to think of them from the get-go as being homogeneous or indivisible. And then they have their separate parts that you can examine. Now, worldly talk and subjects is not likely then to fetch them out of their hiding places inside the human being. A sign of intelligence, if they have an intelligent being, that would be a sign of somebody who's beginning already to intuit, as it were, the intelligence of the Shiva and Shakti inside, you see, and how they complement each other. If you step up one grade, then it's got low-grade mantras. Maya, the universe of principles, or the tattvas, so then all of a sudden, why is that better? because the word Maya is kind of a watchword and a cautionary word, is because that you know there's such a thing as covering power, that form covers formlessness, and that space covers infinity, and all the concepts that you've been led to think are higher concepts in Western knowledge and in science are not actually that high at all. But people don't entertain them very much. They don't think about them very much. Astronomers might, and scientists and physicists and mathematicians, they might have a little bit of a concourse with these kinds of subjects. But India is saying that this still falls in the pale of aparavidya. Apara means not supreme, lower than. And there is something called paravidya, which is much, much deeper. So if you went up the scale here, if you were seeking, a sincere seeker, and you're interested in the power of words, you had a teacher in school, say, that inspired you. You know, they say, oh, I look back at him and I'm so grateful for that particular priest in my church, or that particular teacher in my high school, or that particular... You're missing the point. The point is that your intellect got perked by hearing the words of those people. You forgot that she's in the word, not in the person. So you should have pursued the word. And if you did, you began to know that there were higher words to be heard, better words to be heard. Even beyond, as I was saying earlier, beyond ethics and morality. Those were words that you found that straightened up the crookedness in you, if they were delivered properly. But they didn't give you enlightenment, and they never will. You're going to have to go to an intelligent particle, you know, that's beyond conventional things. And the way that conventional religion has been interpreted for hundreds and thousands of years, not just in the West, but in India too. Vivekananda used to say for 2,000 years, India hasn't really known much about its own scriptures, and has been misled by the Brahmin priests to a great extent to fall away from this idea of non-duality. And, by the way, Shiva and Shakti and how they represent non-duality, the two who are one. Here you're not talking about 5 into 1 or 4 into 1 anymore. You're talking about the two who are one. So you're slimming the playing field down, you see, and you're concentrating, you're coming toward the truth of the power and everything. Just like a scientist finds it in atomic particles, you're going to find it in the mantras, in the great power words. That'll be evident when I show it to you. But there you see this dotted line called, then in parentheses there, the spell of Maya. And you see there just before it, underneath that, the Shakti mantra, Mahamaya, the universe of subtle principles. If you awaken to that, as I was just asking you to do in this explanation I was just giving of how people find more intelligent things to think about, better people to listen to. This is the tract of intelligence that you're moving along, and it's buddhi. They have a word for it that's Lord Buddha took his name after. That's how important it is. It's buddhi. It's, according to Swami Vivekananda, the first compound of consciousness, and consciousness is God in India. Make that a capital C, please. Or awareness with a capital A. That's Chaitanya is a good Sanskrit word for that. So this is the highest, best, deepest, formless, indivisible, eternal consciousness, which is your Atman. You might as well take those 4 or 5 words and just say, that's what my Atman consists of. And the tattvas do not consist of those, of that Atman. You see, they come out of it as evolutes. So that's why you'd want to give up worldly talk and subjects, low-grade mantras, and then once you found out about Mahamaya, or subtle principles, being where? Not back in time and not up in space, but back inside your own essential being. See, at least back inside your mind and not just in your brain. See, then you found these deeper lokas or chakras or bardos or the kingdoms of heaven within you or the chambers in my Father's mansion. Then you found those. And now you spend your time under a tree somewhere going in and looking at them, you see, delighting in them. And you have words for things that block your vision and that put up barriers in your path. They're called bijams, and what they open is nadis. See, so you've got, just like I can go out, get in the car and go up the street and go across the island and go to Kona and go swimming or whale watching. See, well, I can also sit here and open up, just like I would get in a car, take the vehicle of my own mind, made aware by mantra, and go out along an internal road to a far distant land and whale watch my own Atman, you see. I find all these things within me, the kings of heaven within you, and I never moved an inch. My breathing stopped. My senses were turned off. I didn't think about anything else but that great adventure of consciousness within me. And I was totally delighted and satisfied by it. So you just penetrated through the spell of Maya, you see, the way Tantra is putting it. If you find these inner principles, you have not found God yet, you have not found your essential self yet, you've not even found the gods and goddesses yet. You have found out that there are realms of awareness within you. See, kings of heaven within you. It was put very well by Jesus. Now, there you see a very important thing, because if you penetrate through the spell of Maya, what you get is the birth of Viveka Gyan. And we've been saying in SRV for decades, and we've been noticing the lack of it in people, is that even if you're following the path of devotion and it doesn't go very deep, if you're following the path of meditation and your meditations aren't making you more aware, a better person and more conscious, or if you're following the path of action and it's just creating karma for you, then the one thing that you're missing is Viveka Gyan. That's the path of wisdom, the path of knowledge, and there's where Mother shines. She, at least in terms of the involving process of the soul returning to its source, you see, dropping off the body, dropping off the senses, grabbing a hold of your mind as a vehicle, like your car. You see, vahana it's called in Sanskrit. Now that's my vehicle, and that's going to drive me through these passageways and roadways into deeper levels of my consciousness, and so I can sit there and, like under a tree for days and days, whether it's 12 or 49, I can sit there and drive the vehicle of my mind into these inner realms. And what will they unfold next, you see? Just like driving across the countryside, and at the next corner, there's the ocean, or drive around the next corner, there's the mountain. Just like that, you're going in inner scenery, and hours, days can pass in that kind of a occupation, or a divine preoccupation. So the two things there is, first you achieve an end to rounds of birth and death. It's much like the Tripura teaching, that once you surrender yourself to Divine Mother, and the mantra would be involved in that, then you extract yourself out of Bhur-Bhava and Swaha. You're not made captive in the three worlds anymore. So you're free of them. So 3 below, 3 above, 1 in the middle. What's the 1 in the middle? Your heart. The three lower realms, you've gotten out of the spell of Maya, so now you're arriving at the heart center in this beautiful inward drive you're taking with your own mind. So one of the things about that you might not even realize for a while is that you're not forced to go back to earth again. See, I talk about people dying in their sleep. Well, some of those beings dying in their sleep, they realized that death was a joke. that the soul was never born, so it can't die. So what they did was just throw the sandbags out of the hot air balloon of their mind, and they went away from the body and the earth. And they didn't go up, and they didn't go back. They went in. I don't know how many times I have to stress that, because I just got an email today about a person who just cannot understand that. They've been conditioned for so long about this idea of once having been, a paramecium, or having to evolve through billions of years to get to where you are now, or something up in space, that's causing you to look up instead of inward, where your essence is, inward, your true self, your Atman. It's even beyond outer and inner. But we have to use some words in English that have a little power, don't we? Until we understand what Om or Shrim or Shring or Aim mean when the mind hears them and uses them in a mantra attached to a great being like Shiva. Om Namah Shivaya, for instance. So you will snap the chains of birth and death. It's a great song to Sri Ramakrishna that Swami Vivekananda wrote. You'll snap the chains of birth and death, and you will realize that you're not earthbound anymore, unless you prefer to or want to be. If you want to go back, that's a Jivan Mukta or a Bodhisattva. The second thing you'll realize is ability to distinguish between chit and achit. You see, between thought or lower thought and no thought at all, if you will. See, so there you see the next dotted line. It's the realm of Mahamaya, and the Shakti mantra penetrates that for you. So before we leave this birth of Vivek again, and before our break at the half, I want to switch charts. We'll come back to this and show you the great sword of discrimination, because this Vivek again needs some defining and some meaning. And this is all drawn out of the great Shankara's Viveka Chudamani and some of the slokas there. You see, if you want to find the source, look in that great scripture, Viveka Chudamani, the crest jewel of discriminative wisdom. Viveka, also Swami Vivekananda took that name because he knew how important it was. So slokas 147 through in 148, pretty much there it is, this great sword of discrimination, through which you can cut away blockages in the path. And so you can see that you're already cutting through the spell of Maya, and now you're beginning to penetrate into the realm of Mahamaya. It's as if you've been given this great weapon, and you can see here why the mantra is so important to it. Look at the very beginning here, the name of power, sanctity of the sword, grace of the Lord, his or her name of power. Gaudapada, who was Shankara's teacher's teacher, says, absolute consciousness, which Upanishadic sages call Brahman, by its very nature as grace, is free from the subtle anxiety that is always left by any separate experiencer. Which is always felt by any separate experiencer. So if you have this idea of separation between this and that, I and thou, God and man, spirit and nature, or people and other people, if you have that sense of essential separation from them, there's always an anxiety that accompanies you everywhere you go. Call it fear, call it doubt, or an admixture of them. But Gaudapada, the great master of non-duality in that age, says that that will go away. This state that you'll get free from that through this understanding of the Lord, his name. And you might as well then look at these three great power symbols there in the ancient Sanskrit. Om, Aim, and Hrim. They are right on the blade of the sword. And we could go straight across the board to the edge of the sword. What does that do for you? It purifies the mind. So the mantra is best at purifying the mind. Here we have in the West words, mind, subconscious mind, and unconscious mind. And but the idea in yoga psychology, not just Western psychology aside now, but yoga psychology, is that you can take this purificatory tool given to you by the sort of discrimination that is entirely akin to or the same with these power bijams, like the edge of the sword. And you can, as Lord Patanjali says here, past impressions create for the aspirant an assumed reality, such as the physical and mental illness, until a force of new impressions from samadhi burn these out. So you're beginning to have higher thoughts come to you, as I was saying earlier, by the usage of this mantra, and it's burning away these impediments and giving you a hint at your own true nature, which is samadhi. He goes on to say, through purificatory practices such as japa, that's the recitation of the mantra on your beads or on your hand even, the seeker ceases to react to physical illness and becomes impervious to depression and the emotional states it causes. Let's see if we can find a person in your life who's like that. See? And then you should go ask them, how do you hold that standard? How is it that you came to be like that? See? That you're not depressed anymore, you don't have doubts anymore, and you're not bored anymore. See? I mean, how is it that a person can see through this world and give it up, but be the opposite of bored? You see? You think that, oh, there's nothing to do now but sit here. So are they just sitting under trees for 12 or 40 days because they have nothing else to do in boredom? Or have they opened up the kingdoms of heaven within and they're busy, even before they leave the body in death, busy visiting them? What are their dreams like as compared to ours? And why are they having visions? And we're just vibrating at lower, talking about silly things, you see. Conventional things. Nothing higher occupies our conversations. Why is it that we're so dumbed down like that? And why don't we follow the great teachers like Shankar and Gaudapada here and just walk through the first doorway of yoga? It's called silence. If you're having a problem with lower grade mantras, try silence. And see what that does to your friends when they come up and try and use lower grade mantras on you, and you just shake your head and don't say anything back. Silence. I'm in Mauna. So in retreats, so we go into Mauna, you see. And we don't get up in the morning and say, good morning, it's time for coffee. You see, we get up and we sit in meditation at 5 a.m. in the morning. We started our silence after we did our worship the night before, you see, of Shiva and Shakti. And then we slept in silence, we got up in silence, we had our breakfast in silence after meditation in silence. The first words we heard were, Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana, were mantras from the great scriptures. And then our teacher expounding on the meanings of those. And that went on for 3 hours, just like it's going on here. And that made up at least 12 of your 24 hours of your day right away in silence, you see. So I'm just saying, there are solutions to these problems of lower grade mantras that become habitual until people are talking zeros. You know how Sri Ramakrishna put that? Zeros don't add up to anything at the end of your life. But if you were to put a 1 in front of that line of zeros, you'd have a huge number. So you need to find the meaning and put it before all of this and be faithful to that meaning. Don't betray that meaning. Hold that standard and keep it for a long time. Make it your yoga. And have an ideal maybe behind it, or a twin ideal like Shiva and Shakti. Well, let's look at some of the other things here. The hilt of the sword is the faith in the revealed scriptures, which is all about words. Talk about power words like Om, Aim, and Hrim. Those have something to do in silence in your meditation, working on your subconscious mind. But the revealed scriptures, as I chanted at the beginning of this class, are also very powerful to sit in front of your guru and listen to, you see, and hear them. So Lord Vashishta says, study of the scriptures without a teacher for mere intellectual knowledge alone will only lead to agyan. ignorance. So you can go and listen to an illumined soul day after day and never get the point. See, it's like feeding pigeons corn and peas. You think it went to their digested and went to their bellies, but it actually got stuck in their craw. So there are students who could be lectured by Jesus or Buddha, and the teachings wouldn't go deep enough. They're not entertaining it deep enough. It just stays on the surface because they don't have that deep love and that deep faith and that inner longing, that ability to penetrate, the willingness to participate in the adventure of consciousness until enlightenment dawns on the mind. Some very powerful things missing there. Let's look at the rest of the sword here. The power of the sword is its third eye. That's called the Agya chakra. It's number 6 in the 7. So it's the deepest and almost bridging on non-duality. If you have your consciousness going to the third eye, then that will open. There's really only 2 channels leading to that and out of it. And so all the nadis have disappeared, thousands of nadis, and your consciousness is going along this double trajectory. Might as well be Shiva and Shakti's own highways, you see. Then there you arrive at the third eye and everything disappears, all form disappears, and you have a deep inner experience of beautiful blue pearl or cylinder right in the middle of your forehead. Sometimes it would be there if you looked inside with eyes closed or you looked outside with eyes open. It didn't matter. It was still there. So rubbing your eyes isn't going to do any good, you see, because you've arrived to an inner eye. If thine eye be single eye, Buddha nature eye, Dharma eye, Lord Buddha called it. The white dove ascending, according to the ancient Christians. The Jnana Chakshu, according to Sri Krishna, the eye of wisdom. In many different religions they've got names for this center. So what is it there? It's the discriminative wisdom. It's the eye of non-dual wisdom. Sri Krishna says about it, to those who love me and are devoted to me, I give them the power of discrimination by which they can come to me. So again, it's going to go a lot smoother for you if you love the Lord and the Mother of the Universe, if you found out about them and you idealize them and you worship them, no matter what your yoga might be, bhakti or jnanam or meditation, find out about them and put them in place, and then see how quick this sword of wisdom gets unsheathed, and you can cut through all obstacles and all barriers. The upper right hand there is, what's the effect of the sword? Realization of truth. Kapila, the Muni Kapila, who was the founder of Samkhya yoga at the time, he says, with the full expansion of knowledge arising from the elimination of all attachments and the transcendence of dualities, the self abandons all identification with Prakriti, that's nature, and knows itself as the reality. So that's how important it is to eliminate these attachments. And the sword of wisdom, the mantra, the bijams, will be the best way to do that. This is the great purificatory tool of mantra that, especially in a culture and a time when there's not a lot of time to give to something like studying the scriptures or entering into a lot of ritualism, the mantra is going to be perfect for that kind of being. Now, there's only one other entry here on this chart. That's the blade of the sword. We're assigning that swadharmic duty. Lord Buddha says, and this is a very beautiful paragraph here, a well-informed view, knowledge of the non-dual nature of existence, a well-intentioned resolve, mature initiation, goodwill towards all beings, and the desire not to harm them, non-caustic speech, refraining from lying, gossip, and slander, like these lower grade mantras. wise conduct in conformity with morality, right livelihood, selfless but meticulous effort, support of dharma and avoidance of adharma, mindfulness and sensitivity in thought, word, and deed, a refined concentration, all this is called true dharma. So then I wonder, if there's any better definition of dharma in the entire world than what Lord Buddha puts forth there in the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. So that is the blade of the sword. That's your swadharmic duty, to heft this blade, develop muscles strong enough to hold it and wield it inside against all these impediments and obstacles that are trying to foist themselves on you, all the way down through these subdivisions we're looking at, through cosmic principles all the way down to the influence of Maya itself. So let's see, there is one more quote here in the box from Adi Shankaracharya himself, because this is his description of the sword in the Vivekachudamani. He says, from faith in the scriptures comes fidelity to one's own duty, and from performance of that duty comes purification of the heart and mind. There is only knowledge of the Supreme Self, and by that knowledge comes the destruction of the tree of samsara. So, sword of discrimination, you see. I don't know, there might only be one way to really sing that in a way that's indicative of how it's meant. That is, it's a very somber subject, but it has a very sweet treatment sometimes. Eshete nutana manas dek bijori aichale. Esheche nutana manas dek bijori aichale. Tar viveka vairagya juli. Viveka vairagya juli. Dui kante sadajale. Tar viveka vairagya juli. Viveka vairagya juli, dui kande sada jule. Esheche nutana manus dek bijori aichale. And the verses that come out of that beautiful bhajan written by Devendranath Mazumdar, one of Sri Ramakrishna's devotees. As a new man has come. If you want to see him, come with me. But when you see him, don't be surprised. He has nothing. He only has a shoulder bag. And inside, if you look, you'll only find discrimination and detachment. Asheche nutan manas. Asheche nutan. New man, new mind. A man with a new mind has come. And all he has as his possessions are discrimination and detachment. Viveka and vairagya. Tar viveka vairagya juli, dui kande sada jule. A beautiful Bengali hymn, and, with some really wonderful verses too. Aqua wawa water pani sare kata chik chale. Wawa water pani. She Kali Che Krishna Nama Beda Akpule. She Kali She Krishna Nama Beda Akpule. She Kali She Krishna Nama Beda Akpule. Je Kali She Krishna Nama Beda Akpule. Esheche Nutan Manus Dek Bijori Aichole. He goes on singing, aqua, water, pani, vadi, these are all different names for water. And he says, water is called by various names. Similarly, Allah, God, Jesus, Moses, and Kali are all different names for the same reality. So he has these very wonderful ways. And so that's a kind of very simple but profound power of discrimination, viveka, inside of Sri Ramakrishna and beings who have pursued divine reality through the repetition of God's name connected to the power bijams. In order to understand that further, and before our break, let's go back to our chart here, which we took just momentary departure from to explain this birth of Vivek again in people. You might say could be the one thing that the gurus who are really authentic teachers are looking for when they teach. Say, did what I say strike a spark there? Is that person awakened yet? See, did they get the fire of yoga? Are they on fire yet? See, are they just coming back again to get more corn and peas for their craw? You see. So if that Viveka Gyan gets kindled in them, and then this sword is about ready to be unsheathed. And I can give them a mantra to help them. You see, that's perfectly in keeping with their practice, sadhana it's called right now. So they're looking for this birth of Viveka again. The next entry, as we move up towards this awareness of Shiva and Shakti as Kamakala, this is the next dotted red line. These are like levels of this that we're talking about. Teaching of Kamakala in Tantra, or the oneness of Shiva and Shakti, is what we're about here at this, and how the mantra and the bijams play into that. So what happens there then next on the chart, it says realizes the pure sense of I. So we were just talking a few minutes ago about this ego that's taking knowledge in and putting its own stamp on it, trying to own it, possess it, and take credit for it. And that we saw that was entirely different in Sri Ramakrishna's case. He was always taking it from Mother, giving it back to Mother, and without any grasp on it himself at all. So there you see these two entries there. That being who reached that level would attain Deha Shuddha, and a pure body. So that's one of the things that happens. I think we mentioned it in last week's class, is that the authentic guru gives you the mantra that they've used to gain realization through. No matter what level of realization they might have attained there, then they're giving you something that's going to purify your body. What that really means is not that, something like washing your body all the time, or, keeping it away from dirt and so forth. But the pure body, the Deha Shuddha, means that now you're fit for going into the company of other beings of God, lovers of God, beings who love God. And that could be in any religious format or congregation. You just feel naturally at home with those who are seeking the highest reality. And so that's the meaning more behind Deha Shuddha. You get a pure body. The mantra gives you that. I've even heard the instruction myself from my teacher, whereas if you do the mantra on your fingers, which you're told to do, then an energy will actually go up your arm and into your body, into your heart and so forth, and make certain unseen and unknown transformations inside of your physical form, your physical activities in life, which then give you this pure body, Deha Shuddha. So they've noted this in Tantra, that it's a very, it's a stage that happens. And then next, contacts higher tattvas, such as Ishvara. And this is almost preaching to the choir in a sense, or saying the obvious, because when you took the mantra, you had the name of God with the power bijams, right? Which should be obvious here. So the grace of the Lord is upon you through your teacher. They say that Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva have already given you their grace. So that's Ishvara, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. So by saying the name of your mantra, which is, could be aligned with Shiva, or in this case Ramakrishna here, Kali, Durga, Ganesha, and so forth, by saying that mantra and watering that with the tears of your own devotion, they say, And accompany it with that power bijam, which we'll look at after the break in the next charts, then that's going to bring about this ability to actually contact higher tattvas. In Shaivism, there are 12 higher tantras beyond the 24 cosmic principles of Lord Kapila. You see where we saw one of his quotes here. So he's talking about the 24 cosmic principles, but there are 12 higher tattvas, or spandas they're called in Shaivism, which are vibratory spheres which get very, very refined. Ishvara is one of those. So Shaivism provided that higher spanda teaching for us. We could actually segue to that chart from here and it would work perfectly. So basically here you have an ability to contact or have a vision of or have communion with, the word in Sanskrit is darshan, with your chosen ideal. Ishvara means your chosen ideal, or ishtam. And of course, if that's there, then you'll know Shiva and Shakti are one. If you see the male pigeon, then the female pigeon is somewhere around, Sri Ramakrishna said. And if you see the female pigeon, then you'll know the male pigeon isn't far away. So when you're having this vision or this contact inside, a sweet contact with Ishvara, you'll know that Ishvari is there too. Or vice versa. If you're worshipping Ishvari, the female deity, then the male deity is also there. So this is Kamakala. This is the union of Shiva and Shakti, who appear as two but are actually really one force. And there you see it represented by the trikona, the triangle there. So basically, if you have awareness of Shiva and Shakti, you'll know that they have a desire to create on a cosmic level. They produce out of Prakriti, or the tattvas and nature. They express through vibration or sound, spanda, and they are represented by a dot, like this third eye that we just looked at this sort of discrimination chart, this Jnana Chakshu. That dot, or that bindu it's called, everything is contained back in there. So there's where you'll find all the power words and actually all the seeds to everything. It's really very much like deep sleep, because you're still dreaming in a sense when you're at the heart chakra, and you're having higher and higher dreams at the throat chakra. But when you reach here, the dreams are being wiped away, and you're just having the peace of deep sleep. Only, of course, this is a more conscious, so you'll see all the seeds are there in deep sleep, or all the seeds are there in that bindu. The word is humming mostly, very profoundly in that bindu. Now this is a whole retreat long, or many retreats long, teaching from Tantra that students pursue when they get interested in Shiva and Shakti as their ideals. If you want to express it with a diagram, then you'll see here the trikona. That power bijam we just mentioned is here at one's part, and then across the bottom, the knowledge bindu is there at the other part, and at the top, the polarization of those, the bindu. So it's all bindu is a trikona. Inside there you see mula trikona, or primal triangle, is the very inception of form, because we need 3 lines to create a form that closes. So you'll have this lot of teachings about the mula trikona, and this is divine form we're talking about. In Tantra, there's beautiful words in Sanskrit that, like vichikirsa or svatantriya. When they think of creating or producing something in form, then it's of a divine nature. Then it's going to be created out of freedom, svatantriya, and it's going to be done so by vichikirsa. It's a pure desire. It's not the desire to just have pleasures by creating worlds like the gods and goddesses below them are doing, or like people are doing here. I think I'll have a family and enjoy family life and so forth. But the very inception of all of that at the most refined form is this vichikirsa, desire to create out of perfection based in freedom. So you don't find that expressed in Vedanta or Buddhism or Samkhya or yoga. You only find it expressed that way in Tantra. And so Tantra has this powerful idea of the deification of everything. Since everything has Shiva and Shakti in it, in different admixtures of it, and there's a polarization of it, and it has these two expressions in knowledge and in power. And basically, you're to understand that you should deify everything because of that. You can't overlook anything, like your food. You see. So other ideas came along where you should be, using your mantra over your food. I mean, because you didn't want to. The word is dis. You didn't want to disgrace or disapprove of or distract yourself. Any forms of that dis word are there by not worshiping Shiva and Shakti in everything. So this becomes a kind of mindfulness practice in Tantra that goes very deep into it all, and it's based in this understanding of what the Bindu really is, Trikona. There are other teachings there, but as we're running out of time in this first half, and I want to complete these two charts, at least in this half, then let's go to the very top and see that, like Vedanta, Advaita, and Buddhism and others, the idea of non-duality or samadhi or satori or nirvana is really at the essence of everything. So there you see the Trikona pointing to Advaitic realization. That's Shiva and Shakti in union. They didn't bifurcate anymore and use the power of Bindu to produce worlds and everything. You're going into the deepest part of involution, spiritually speaking, when you see them in union. Pure existence combined with inner essence. Another way of putting it is non-dual awareness united with freedom. Because if you just had Shakti and she was somehow devoid of Shiva, that's freedom but without perfection. And if you just had Shiva but it was devoid of Shakti somehow, then the awareness is there but it's not in fullness. So I am is the way that both Vedanta and Tantra would put that. The I am has to contain both of these powerful elements of Shiva and Shakti. I am in fullness, ahamta, see, or purna. That's where this word purna comes through. Purnahamta. I am in fullness. So everything that seems scattered or seems empty or seems not complete, it doesn't have that feeling of satisfaction and contentment and peace in it. All of those things that are there at all levels of existence, whether you're looking at matter or you're looking at mind, those things are there because of the one-sidedness of the system. It's either only believing in dynamic power or it's only believing in formlessness. But in Tantra, the two are fused perfectly. And that's what gives everything innate contentment, satisfaction, unalloyed peace, undisturbed bliss. There you'll find that perfectly, where you have this divine couple understood and realized and worshipped in the fullest sense of the word. The word. So we were able to come to a rendering of this very actually complex teaching of Kamakala and put it together with the import of power bijams and mantras. We'll end the first half in that high elevated condition, and when we meet you for the second half, we'll come down to a level of how to use the bijams and the mantras on a more practicable level and be able to ourselves experience the innate homogeneity of Shiva and Shakti in our own meditations. So here, we will pause for our break.
Bhajakaali Icha hoy tor jayachari Guru Datta Mahamantra Ivaneshi Japa Kore Monopoli Bhajakaali Icha hoy tor jayachari Guru Datta Mahamantra